Welcome back, Red Spotters. This is the Red Spotlight Podcast. How are you doing, by the way? I'm talking to Alexis Moreno, coming to us from Arizona. I believe she has spent half of her living hours not being conscious. So how is that treating you? And I'm so jealous of you, by the way. if you could actually spend half of your time, because you know what? Oh man, some mornings I wake up and my eyes hurt. Like, why are you awake? Why are you up? Why are you torturing us?
It's so funny because, so at my job, I have a new schedule, and I work at a dental office, and they have me working with the anesthesiologist now. So I only, on days that he goes into the office, which is not every day, I work from 6 to 2. Meaning 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. And when I switched over, all of my coworkers that know me so well by now were making fun of me because they know how much of a hard time I have waking up. Like, it's been a handful of times where my alarm doesn't wake me up. I literally have 2 alarm clocks. Like an alarm clock, an actual alarm clock that's across my room because I have to get up and turn it off, and then my phone has like 10 rings to it. And most of the time,
stressful. That's so stressful. It's like you already have so much like to think about, but to add in the added stress of like, what if I don't wake up tomorrow? It's happened
like a handful of times where my alarm just does not wake me up, and I've had my manager call me and wake me up and be like, are you okay? Where are you?
Damn.
Yeah. Not in this schedule, but you know, when I would go in at 7, 8, or 9. But it's so funny because now that I have to wake up at 4 in the morning to like get ready, and I usually get to work around 5, but I don't go until 6. I wake up so easily.
So if anyone on the podcast has been like wondering where Alexis has been, there's your answer, folks. That's pretty much where she's been, and I promise you.
I'm a grandma now. I go to bed around 9, 10.
All of us are. Again, I don't know what it is about, like, I'm not saying
you guys did not go to bed around 9 or 10. You guys go to bed like at 1, which was me too.
Yes, but I mean, I think in your situation, you have a much more impacted routine schedule now. So, but the point that I was making is like, if anyone wonders as to like why, like in recent weeks and months, we haven't had, and honestly, maybe even in the last year or so, we haven't had many shows where we have more than maybe 2 people at one time. It's because a lot of us are. Again, funny how it all kind of has happened at the same time all at once, but we all kind of got super busy, and it's not as if like we lead exciting social lives. We have no social lives.
Literally do not have any.
It's just work. It's nothing but work.
To keep up the busyness, David just got a new job.
Oh God, did he?
Yeah, so he's leaving his old job. But now he has a 9 to 5 job, so he may have a little bit more free time, and he gets weekends off now, so.
Now that might be a positive, folks.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe we can get some more David episodes. We'll see about that. But it's crazy because, I mean, you've been doing school, and of course you got a promotion recently. Congratulations. This is the first time on the show we're mentioning it, I want to say. I'm not sure if you mentioned it in the last podcast. But if you didn't, here we are again saying that you got a promotion. So obviously that has directed your new schedule change. As we have already said, I think several times, Peter, honestly, every now and then we get to have an episode with him. That's kind of lucky enough because he's obviously in hell right now.
Yeah. How much longer does he have of this?
He still has like up until summer, I think. Ooh. And I actually saw Shazam with him the other day. And on the whole car drive over there, he was like telling me all the stuff that he's just now, what's happening now at his nursing program. And I told him, like, you're giving me anxiety. Like all the different things. Like he had,
man.
like it's bad. Like he has to pass every single test with at least a 78%. And he's told me at the last few tests, like his average is going down. Like it was from 86 to 84 to 82%. So like, he feels like he needs to shake his like he needs to shake up his study routine. No, it's bad. And then well, you know, Kyle, he's teaching full time, and that I that's what I do. I mean, substitute teach, but it's all encompassing, and he obviously has like, I believe he has middle schoolers in addition to the usual round, and that's never an easy day for anybody. So yeah, he's probably a little bit miserable at some parts during the day. And yeah, I want to say maybe of all of us, maybe I have the most flexibility, but even that's kind of pushing. I mean, I'm the one that's here every week, right? And that's because I choose to be. I mean, I don't have anything else.
I'm so happy that you can have an hour-long conversation by yourself.
Did I?
And that's not to make fun of you. I'm so happy that you still, you know, putting the effort to put an episode out there, and they're interesting. And
thank you.
Yeah,
I would hope, and you know, I'm thankfully that's actually something to talk about here, because recently, because it for so long I kind of lucked out where more often than not there are people who are going to be able to accompany me to do a podcast. And in the past, when there's been no one available, it's like, oh, well, I mean, what can you do, right? Like, there's no show this week. Them's the breaks, right? But it's not as if I didn't try in the years past. No, it took me a long time to be able to do that. And honestly, even because in the last few weeks, I did not one but two, like, podcasts that was just me just talking at the audience. And even though it sounds a bit silly that I wouldn't like the sound of my own voice, and come on, let's be honest with ourselves, I sound like that person that would like, and yeah, I think my voice sounds nice every now and then, okay? Excuse me. But
it does.
It does. It is, you know, and look, hey, it's one of the things that people always compliment me about. So I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and glow for a little bit here, okay? But also, you know, to like humble myself a little bit, I wasn't very comfortable. And I think in previous years where I did try to do it on my own, it felt so awkward. And it felt so like weird. It's like, I'm not talking to anybody. Like, you know?
I remember when, I mean, that's the reason why I don't want to host. It's so, oh my God. Me and David were actually just talking about Turn to Page, because like we really want to do an episode, but it's just hard. And then obviously like Peter's not available, and then we don't know like if Kyle is, and we'll set up a date, but then it won't fall through or whatever, which is, you know, it's what's been happening. That's why we haven't put up an episode. But me and him were talking, and, you know, since he's having this new schedule, and we were like, well, why don't we just, like, we won't talk about, like, the Harry Potter books. We'll just talk about the books that we're reading. I've read, because we read a lot. Like, he reads a lot. He reads a lot more than I do. And then I'll get, like, these, like, moments where I just start reading and I can't stop. Like, in the last week and a half, I read 7 books.
Man.
So we're just like, well, why don't we just do like an episode, like the both of us, and we'll just talk about the books that we've been reading, just like a quick one. And he's like, yeah, like we could do that. I don't know, just to put something up. And I was like, I'm not hosting. But he's like gotten used to it because of
he's doing his podcast now on our network that you can listen to. So I think he has more. Well, he has practice.
Yes.
You've never been comfortable to even put yourself out there, so it's like you have no experience doing it. I mean, hosting is one thing, but I mean, to differentiate it, like it's easier, and it's not that difficult when you have somebody to talk with. That's, I think, the key difference. But like with me, honestly, it sounds kind of weird that this would happen to me of all people, but like in the previous times that I tried to do this, eventually I like ran out of things to say, and it kind of left me like I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know what to say next, and I was out of breath. Because I'm not. That's one of the things that I didn't even think about, which was like, okay, usually our podcasts run for 2 hours. Easy, you know? And then on a good day, 2.5 hours. Have you ever tried or think about that you're going to be talking the entirety of the time? And like, I will say that the last one, which I think it was over 2.5 hours, or it was over 2 hours. And maybe I took 1 or 2 breaks, but only because you don't hear it there because I cut it out, but I had to step away because there was something happening at the house. But it wasn't if it could be helped, I wouldn't have wanted to walk away from it. But I got pretty far, and it just makes me think of all those people who do live streams for hours on end. Like the one thing that does help them is the idea. Well, they have a chat that they can interact with. That's the thing. It's like I feel
like you would thrive in that. But also I think you would get in a lot of trouble. I would think. I mean, I would have to. There are a lot of things that people say that piss me off, Alexis. And sometimes people are pretty fucking stupid, you know? And I feel like if there was a freaking chat in front of me and the whole thing was me, like, responding to it, it would be... And not because you would say something, you know... I mean, I can't even... You would say hurtful things, but you would say it to people that are being dumb.
And you know what? I think at the end of the day, don't we need more of those voices out there to push back against the idiocy and just like the brain rot that's going on throughout society? You know, I feel just for once, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who quote unquote tells it like it is, but is actually not coming from a place of hate? You know, that would be nice if we had one of those people instead of just like weakling, coward, corrupt idiots or just fascist racists, you know, dominating the entire conversation. But who knows? Maybe in the future we can experiment with that. But and even I don't think maybe I had like an outline of like what some things I wanted to do. I think, let me look at my notes that I have here, because I do have notes with me on the podcast. Sometimes lately they haven't been as detailed, but the last thing I had like just a list of like, so I have here Shazam, Star Wars, Del Toro, just like really quick things here, and then I just kind of like decide how I wanted it to go in the moment. So like the last podcast, actually, I started off talking about like latest news stories that were interesting, like the Del Toro Frankenstein film or the Gladiator sequel. And I didn't at all go into any kind of like preparations, like what I wanted to mention. It just kind of I let it happen organically, and thankfully enough, it felt good in the moment. And I think it actually sounded pretty good, like hearing it back when it was uploaded, that, okay, it's actually interesting enough. Like, one of my main worries was that if I were to do a podcast on my own, it would just be boring. You know, because like what am I gonna say?
I never thought that, just because I think that I don't know, I mean, I think that Kyle kind of always tells you that the way that you speak and the way that you like present yourself when you talk about something, like you sound so like confident in it, and it just like, it's just, I don't know, like you've always just been that person, you know? So,
well, I mean, that's actually another thing that I've been told, you know, a lot of times, but I think it would surprise people. I'm rarely confident.
I know,
I rarely in anything, and I just like, well, I mean, at least with this show, it's been almost 10 years, you know, right? So again, I don't want to like throw that out there again, but it's been almost 10 years. So you think at this point, one would get comfortable enough to just like, you know, let loose a little bit and just kind of like put yourself out there. And sometimes I don't feel the most comfortable doing that, even with people listening. So maybe in a more like intimate or isolated space, perhaps that would be I don't know, better in terms of like, you know, I wouldn't be opposed, in theory anyway, for you to do your own podcast and just like talk into the ether. I know, I mean, you can't even do that with like with somebody opposite you in a stir conversation. But I mean, again, even with me, who oftentimes people, like you just said yourself, it sounds like I can just breeze through these things. Even it took me a long time to just be like ready to do it. And then one time in the last month, I just said, fuck it, let's just try it and see how it goes. And it ended up going okay. And then the last one was actually pretty nice because, I mean, obviously it helps to have things to discuss. There was a lot of news items. There was the new Shazam movie. And of course there was the Oscars thing. And usually I'm like the only one that's super duper like interested in that. Like I like follow all of the news, and you guys do too, but not anywhere near as in depth as I cover the whole thing, and I look at all of the different like the shows, the pundits, the reviews, all aspects of it. Like to me, like that is and has always been my Super Bowl. That's what I like look forward to. So I know all the ins and outs of it, and you guys don't quite have that same passion. So even it actually was kind of helpful that none of you were there, because I could just like completely go all out of it, you know? I could just like go off and then just like, and not even care. Am I going too long on this? Because, you know, contrary to popular belief, I do understand that sometimes I can go a bit long on a tangent, and I do cut it, you know, I do hold back sometimes, even though it doesn't sound like it, I do. But thankfully, when none of you are here, that's not a problem anymore. So I can just go You're completely
not in my way.
No. That sounded exactly like No, but I mean, I don't know if it sounds this way, but by the way, I know we're already like almost 20 minutes. This is Red Spotlight, guys. I know I already introduced the show. This is going to be the 438th episode. You and I are here, Alexis, so we're going to be talking about all the recent stuff that's happened, and there's a lot that's happened, and even a lot of things that have happened that you didn't get a chance to even speak to in the last month or so. So we are going to be touching on those things, and it has been a very interesting month. I'm going to say that. It has, honestly, it's been one of the most interesting months to see what's happened, particularly with the House of Disney and how that's tied into the overall industry itself that we cover, because it's in a state that none of us ever felt that we would see, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on today.
And happy layoff day.
Oh yeah, happy layoff day. I mean, I think there was already one, and there's one coming. That'll be yes. Oh yeah, was it today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it was today. Okay. I thought it was happening soonish, but okay. Happy layoff day, guys. Okay. Listen, we're so extraordinarily tired. There's so much happening. And so if I sound a bit like tired, it's because I am, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing the best that I can, and I actually wanted to have David soon, because an extraordinary event is going to be happening in the next few days, I want to say, and it's something that I feel ties every single person that's our age, Alexis, together. In the next few hours or days, talk about, you know, feeling old, that this podcast is almost 10 years old and ill, right? But I know, ill. But in the next few days, a long-standing series is going to be closing. One that a lot of us, except for David, apparently, stopped watching ages ago. And one that's, you know, kept having new generations of fans, and one that's still, like, unbelievably relevant across the mediums in today's world. But in just a few days, the anime that ran for 25 years, known as Pokemon, is going, well, at least this iteration with these main characters, or I should say, yeah, this main character is going to be closing. And in the last couple of days, I've just kind of like been re-familiarizing myself with a lot of things in that world that I hadn't like even looked at, I want to say maybe in over 10 years. And I know David is going to have so much more to say about this because when the last I spoke with him, he hadn't stopped seeing it at all. And hey, that's 25 years of television, folks. That's 25 years of television. So I don't know if that's a record that can be topped. I don't know how many people stayed true. And especially with him, it's kind of a big deal because, I mean, he came of age at the right time he's practically as old as this show. So that's kind of special, you know? Mm-hmm. But it's just been kind of interesting to see and to just think about that this is it. That, I mean, there's going to be more series and spin-offs and sequels, and there's never going to be an end to a franchise that makes this much money. But this is a chapter that has gone on for a quarter of a century. And the idea that it's like going to be, particularly with the main character here, which is Ash and Pikachu, the idea that their story is done is a bit surreal. It's a bit surreal, even though it's like it's not something that we followed.
Watched. Yeah.
In a long time. It's just
weird. It's
right.
It's like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a little bit dramatic, but it's kind of.
Oh no!
Like,
please don't say it's dramatic. I mean, we've been dramatic on this podcast many times.
It's like finding out that like that childhood friend or something like something happened to them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a sense of ownership there. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of community. There's a sense of connection. Because, I mean, that person or that character, whatever you have, is a connection to your past. And a past that every day you grow older, you want to kind of revisit just a little bit because there was a lot of cozy moments in that past. You know, it wasn't as brutal as some things are today. So I think that's understandable. But that's a major event that's going to be unfolding pretty soon. And it's just crazy to me that something that I, grew up with loving so much today, to this very day, I don't know how many, I guess this new generation, I should say, and then the one after that, of the kids that I literally surrounded by in my workplace were so into it. Like, you should see I was so shocked when I went into, there for the first time to see, like, there was even like not a band, but like it's so popular that it's one of the school rules that you can't have your cards out during like, it's funny because, and then you would see like kids like show off their collections and I'm like, what the fuck was this when I was there?
I know. Like, seriously? I remember I used to have a whole drawer full of Pokemon cards, and nope. I mean, at the time it would be David, but like, I lived with him. It didn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. I mean, so it's crazy interesting, right? And I mean, we'll see how it all ends up going, but like, there's obviously an emotional resonance that you associate with those faces, with those characters. And I've always said that one of the powerful attributes of programs that are on television, whether it be, sitcoms or drama series, or maybe even like, I don't know, competition shows or whatever personalities you follow, you grow a sense of attachment to them. And the more you watch them, the more you feel like you know them. And then in the context of like television characters, the more real they feel like to you, and the more they kind of like feel as if they're part of your life.
I mean, remember in Family Guy when they killed off Brian?
Yes.
They had to bring him back because people were just like, no. Nope. They were not having it.
No, there was even, I think, one moment in this show where they had a character. Yeah, they had a character that was left behind, and then like some 100 episodes later, they brought them back because of popular demand. This is in Japan, obviously. But to me, it's kind of interesting because I kind of largely assumed that the popularity of the anime itself kind of like fell off a cliff like after, I don't know, 7 or 8 seasons originally, from like 1999 to 2008, I want to say, around there. Granted, this is obviously a show that when it's all said and done, will run for 25 seasons. So it kind of amazed me how it just kept going and going and going. But then again, knowing that it's an anime, maybe it's not so astounding considering how many of the other ones just refuse to die. At this point, it's kind of their trademark, honestly. So yeah, that's just one of the things I wanted to make a note of because it's such a big thing for us, or at least it was from our past. So listen, it's been a dramatic time for a lot of people. It seems like it's a dramatic. And let me be clear here. I'm talking about the entertainment business. Obviously, it's dramatic. Just going outside these days. I mean, I think we're living. I don't keep up with it anymore because I honestly have lost interest. But I think I heard that the former president might be arrested soon, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like so desensitized. I don't even like. There was even news today that there was like a potential tornado in Los Angeles, and I was like, oh. I just kind of shrugged. I don't know what's happened, but this doesn't faze me anymore. Like I've just like
trauma,
right?
Too much trauma.
So much has happened. I feel like when you put like the election of Trump and then the COVID like outbreak, like that 1-2 hit punch has kind of like ruined us for the rest of it. Like, oh, like at this point, it's Tuesday. Whatever happens, aliens will land. Yeah, okay. No one cared. Literally, there were like, I guess, alien ships in the sky, and no one cared. Nobody cared. It's like, what? Because everyday life is just so like traumatic and like awful in a way, you know? And it's like, okay, so what? Maybe they'll kill us. Hopefully. I mean, that's the degree to which like the quality of life in a lot of places kind of diminished. And we could go on days talking about this. We won't, but I just wanted to, give that its due. Life in general is dramatic, but I meant the entertainment industry because, yes, these last few years have been kind of a difficult era. It's been an era of transition and change, and I feel like a lot of the things that have happened this last month, Alexis, and where things are seemingly pointing to, even just 3 years ago when all of us were locked inside our homes and
3 years
doing
ago.
like,
Literally
yeah, I know, right? 3 years ago.
Fuck.
I know, and we were doing like podcasts every single day, and we were like, I feel like every single day it would come up like, guys, is this it for movies? Or like, guys, like what's like, it's like streaming gonna be it from now on.
You know what I just remember what we used to do? That's it's so horrible when you like think about it. How we would announce the count of how many people had passed away.
Yeah.
Fuck.
For a whole year, I think.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm not gonna lie. Part of me was, it's a nice way to kind of ding that asshole for sure. But I mean, I wouldn't. No one was happy about it, and I feel like that whole thing. If we're going to remove ideology and political preference out of it, if there was just, even if he would still be an idiot, but at least if he was like trying to do something good about it and he was at least showing that he cared over the loss of a life, I would give him that deference in a heartbeat, even him of all people. But
It just was not. No.
It wasn't there, and then it got to a point where he was telling people to put bleach in their bodies, guys. Like, I mean, what more did you expect from me? It's like, that guy had to go, and that's the reason why he lost the election. It wasn't because of anything else. It wasn't because of Joe. I mean, I'm sorry, the guy barely has a pulse, but I mean, it was because, seriously, no,
he
it was
just has
funny.
No, like, care for anybody.
No,
but himself, and it showed. So
yeah, it was funny that I don't know who it was at this point, but somebody said that every time they listen to Biden or Trump talk, it feels like you're just watching like someone go through dementia in real time. Honestly, I don't know I don't like hearing either of them speak, but particularly Joe Biden, like hearing him talk,
like, he just talks so calmly.
He doesn't. I mean, I think it would be charitable. It would be charitable to say he puts me to sleep. I don't think it's even that. I feel like it's honestly painful listening to hear him talk, because it's just he's in decline. Like, I mean, he's barely he's 80 years old and he's the president. Just put that out there, right? Yeah.
Why are 80-year-olds presidents anyways?
I think
why is anybody over 55 president?
The senator from California turns 90 this year.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and she has dementia to boot.
Jesus.
And so, like, there's that. That's California. Anywho, it was very depressing and it was dark. Yes, that we opened the podcasts at that point, announcing how many people fucking died since last. Like, I want to say like one of the first ones we did was like 22,000 people had died.
That's
and
so
then
many people.
By January of the following year, it was 400,000 people.
Fuck. Remember when there was like a huge like jump? There was like one episode. I mean, we did episodes every day, like we were saying.
Yeah.
But there was one episode where it was like a big jump, and it's so. And then it's so funny because like people are on TikTok, and there's like a few sounds on TikTok that as soon as you hear it, you like immediately go back to that time, because that's anybody was doing, just like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the first few weeks, I mean, one of the more memorable scenes was the fridge morgues, the portable fridge morgues out in New York City or something, because of how so many bodies were piling up. And you can't leave the bodies out there, because then that's also, I mean, that's why I don't want to watch The Last of Us. I don't need a reminder of what that looked like. I lived through that, you know? And then fucking Kyle Shearer's I'm not going to acknowledge it. Okay. Anywho, entertainment business, the industry has been through a lot of changes, even in these last 3 years. And even honestly, in the months that Iger announced that he would be returning, things have shifted so dramatically. And one of the places I want to start off with, partly because I want to gloat, and I want to gloat about it with you, because I feel like you and I particularly have been like commiserating over how much people have like not shut the fuck up about this. But I feel like you and I are finally maybe given our due for the years of suffering that we had to endure. But how about the moment that we're living in right now, where of all the things happening, the show that used to be regarded as the most popular thing, and by some people the best thing on the planet, is seemingly nowhere to be found in any of the conversations being had anywhere. And it's already been a month. Think on that for a minute there. The show that people would never stop talking about. The show that, if you recall those weeks, they would not stop telling us how much of the best thing ever made it was. It's already been back a month. Just today, they dropped their 4th episode. By the way, 4 of 8. It's already halfway through this season. And no one could be bothered to care.
Because nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. David, I swear, David was like, because he's watching it just to watch it. And I cannot tell you, like, what is happening.
Nobody can. Nobody can. And, you know, I feel like, to be fair, though, I think this, I have been watching it too out of just curiosity. I didn't see the first one, but I did see the, I think 2, 3, and 4. Just because I was already awake. I'm like, okay, well, no, fuck it. Let's go ahead and see what this is about. There is something that is noticeably more grating than what, you know, it was before, but like, nothing was ever happening on the show to begin with. Nothing ever happened. Like, okay, you could, what's the flimsiest thing you could say? Oh, this guy wants to get this baby to some people. Anyway, here's like an hour or a half hour where he just kind of like does a fetch quest, and then it gets nowhere.
And like, if it was only that, like, if it was only either him and this in the relationship with this kid, or him going on everyday adventures, okay, but they're trying to do both, kind of, and it's not very landing.
They made the decision early, and it never landed. And maybe the closest it ever came to landing was maybe in the first few weeks, where it was all but assumed this was going to be as removed as possible from any of the larger storylines that are usually inhabited by legacy characters. And then, of course, slowly but surely, those familiar faces and names and locations came peering their heads into this show. And then this show, particularly Mandalorian, it kind of like it placed itself at the head of the pack, and it had Darksaber here, it had Ahsoka there, it had, clones and Boba Fett and Tatooine every day on the show practically, and then it came with Luke, and then, here's a baby, and the show did it to itself, honestly. Like, if you wanted to have an Adventure of the Week anthology series, that would work out just fine.
Yeah.
But clearly, that was ditched very early on, and there were larger aspirations for this to be such an important story. Like, I feel like the show was sold based on a lone gunslinger, bounty hunter type that would just go in and out of every week, just being a fucking bounty hunter that maybe at one point you could like to maybe like grow the character. But what this ended up being, where we are right now, no, it's not that at all. It's about the Mandalorian people and how they end up like coming. And you know what? That on paper isn't a bad idea to have, but because I am interested in the culture and in the politics and in the interplay and all of it.
Yeah.
But you have the absolute worst people put in charge of it, and you get what you get with this, which is a bunch of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you and I knew this the entire time, and like, why did I say, well, now it's time to gloat? Well, because we've been calling it since day one. It's like, what are you people talking about? Literally, what are you people talking? There's nothing to say about. There never has been anything. No. The only things I'll grant you, there's been plenty of bad things to say. You didn't mention any of those, but there's been plenty of bad things to say. And I feel like I don't know, somewhere between the horrendous execution, embarrassing honestly, that was Boba Fett, somewhere between that and the once in a lifetime miracle that Andor was, but somewhere between, and this all, by the way, that all happened just in 1 year.
Yeah.
Somewhere between Book of Boba Fett and Andor, we've arrived at a place where I think most people are finally, I think the spell has been broken. Amazingly enough, people are like realizing, wait a minute, nothing's happening. Where is this going?
Mm-hmm. Nowhere.
Well, congratulations, people. I mean,
because they don't know what they're doing, and it's so like I think they just announced also that Andor is only having 2 seasons, and that was the whole plan.
No, we knew that for a while now. I know. We know that was actually known, and that is sad. But you know what? I'll take it. At least we get one more. At least we get one more, and it's already like.
Also,
it should be more. Yeah.
It's just so.
Listen.
It's so dumb that like, I don't know. And then I also saw this other thing, which makes me just more upset. Of people saying, because I think the anniversary for that Obi-Wan episode from Rebels with Maul, it was its
Kenobi,
anniversary.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, everybody that's watching any Star Wars show right now, you guys like really need to watch the animated stuff, because everything that is happening now is a branch of these animated shows. And it just makes me so upset, because why? I don't understand the need to change these things, this specific thing from animation to live action, when everything was going so well. Like, I don't understand.
The only reasoning is because I think it kind of answers itself in this way, Alexis. Try selling shows like Rebels and Clone Wars to Mandalorian fans who are only Mandalorian fans and live action Star Wars fans who only watch the show because they think Baby Yoda's cute, or because it's like it looks pretty, or it, like, honestly. And your answer is, but it's animation, it's for kids. A lot of people are going to give you that answer. Well, I don't want to watch that because obviously it's for kids. I'm not a kid. That's the reason why. And that's quite the take to have, especially in this day and age. But that's why you also have billion-dollar grossing Disney live-action adaptation films, because that's the mentality. It's so pervasive. I mean, even in the circles that one would think would cherish the medium in general, one of the recent anonymous ballots from a member of the Academy, literally when they were asked about that category, the animated category, they basically said, I tried watching all of them. I couldn't get into any of it, so I didn't vote for anybody. That you wonder why every time, and I'm happy for a lot of reasons that Guillermo kept winning. I think Guillermo and his movie, I could be mistaken, but I think he was the only one out of any of the categories this award season that won everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He swept, and every time it was the same speech. Animation is cinema. There's a reason he kept saying that.
Yeah.
Because it's so often regarded not just by the populace, not just by the masses, but even in the industry itself. There's literal biases. There's discrimination that needs to be like done away with. That's why The Mandalorian exists in its current iteration. Do you know that it was actually Kathleen Kennedy's idea to link Favreau with Filoni? Because from what I understand, Filoni was and
yeah,
twice they did this. Twice they did this, because originally this show Mandalorian was Filoni literally working on a Mandalorian animated series, and then it was like, yoink, no, let's just go ahead and like diminish the quality, diminish the episode count, and let's just do 8 episodes, or you just dick around and do nothing. And that was bad enough the one time, but then they did it to the Ahsoka show. Then that got personal for me. That got even more. So, well, not once, but twice, they took 2 animated projects away from him that he was working on. Yeah, they involved him. Yeah, I'm sure he feels like they're his, but I don't know. And look, I don't know. I feel like he's being led the wrong path
Yeah.
by Jon Favreau, because like I've seen Rebels and I've seen Clone Wars, and the caliber of
It
those
just doesn't
stories.
make sense.
How does the quality from those shows fall so off a cliff that you get to The Mandalorian?
You get to fucking Boba Fett.
Like, do you know you know this last episode? What I was just skipping through it. Why? The whole episode was this one Mando kid. He gets kidnapped by a hawk monster, and the episode is the Mandalorians going to rescue him. They rescue him. The end.
And like I could see the little bits and pieces of Filoni, because that's what the Clone Wars was. You know, it was like adventure episodes every day, but it had a cohesive story in the end. And I mean, I guess like it helped that, you know, we knew the end game of everything because we had already seen it. But like the fact that show was able to expand so much and make us understand so much that the movies didn't, and this show, The Mandalorian, it's like it's doing the opposite. It's showing us unnecessary things to some story that they're trying to tell, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and I think honestly what's more interesting is not really about what's happening or what's going to happen on this show, but what's really interesting is that in the past this would have worked, and where we are right now is that something significantly changed where audiences are not in that mood anymore. And I honestly do feel it is the crap that was Boba Fett and the amazingness that was Andor that kind of like conditioned people to be in a place where they can kind of see through the veneer. They can finally see through that Jon Favreau is not a good writer because he writes nothing. He has nothing to say. There is no direction. There never was. These are barely characters, honestly. Even calling them characters is pretty charitable. The show never has had anything. And if people are out there wondering, I mean, honestly, what an amazing... I could not think I would be able to love Andor more. But now that Andor is like, you know, helping to expose the empty vapidness that always was this show. But to be honest with you, though, I have been seeing it. And from the standpoint of like, where is any of this going? It's never been any worse than it is right now. It's never been any worse. And it's also kind of weird because I don't know what it's trying to say. And I've noticed that people have picking up on this too. It's taking this kind of, granted, The Mandalorian creed is in and of itself a religion, and exploring different religions in Star Wars in and of itself is interesting, but it's kind of taking a weird tone in a way where, and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I gotta be honest with you, not because of the allegory to what I'm about to say, but because I don't think this is what this character deserved. But Bo-Katan clearly was, I think at some point it was revealed that this Mando, Jin, the main character here, belongs to a group of cultists in the Mandalorian culture that are they're religiously fanatics. They do not remove their helmets. It's part of their, like, they're ultra like basically the most Christian. For lack of a better way of like putting it, that's what it is. And since like Bo-Katan's own people like completely abandoned her, she was put in a position this season where the only people that would welcome her were those cultists, and the only reason they welcomed her was because she just so happened to like swim in religious or sacred waters, and she didn't remove her helmet, and they all of a sudden like welcomed her back, and she's sure she saw a creature, and she's being gaslit by the people who are saying, well, of course you saw it. You believe in this, right? And they kind of like, because she technically was in the waters, like they kind of like the allegory is like baptism and like born again Christianity. And I'm not sure what they're trying to.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they don't even know themselves. But I think it's coming out a bit awkward. And when you see it, it's like, wait a minute. What are you trying to suggest that somehow Bo-Katan was the crazy one here when clearly she isn't and never was? That she just wanted to, I don't know, show her face around? Like, there's just a backwardness to all of it too. And I was like, low-key laughing internally because so much of the episode yesterday revolved around the idea that even though it's been said that, yes, this Grogu character is a foundling, which means he has chosen to walk the way of the Mandalorian, it didn't actually occur to me up until like seeing him with a whole bunch of other Mandalorians that made me laugh that, wait a minute, are they going to make a Mando helmet for a creature that looks like Yoda? Like, do you not know how fucking silly that looks? Like, how are you going to fit his... It's just like, what? It doesn't really work. So, part of it made me feel uncomfortable because it feels like Bo-Katan is being gaslit in a way that, even to this day, while there are very well-meaning people of faith out there, and please don't mistake this for saying that most are not good people, but there's a lot of, let's just say, predatory practices that are inhibited by religion in general. And we think we're all very familiar with that. And they kind of prey on the weak. And at this particular moment, Bo-Katan was kind of like, her home was destroyed. Her people abandoned her. She had literally nowhere to go. And they just kind of, even though they said so much shit behind her back into her face, all of a sudden they welcome her with open arms just because she followed the rules, quote unquote.
Interesting. Why?
Now, I hope this doesn't make you watch it because it's not really worth watching,
no,
honestly.
Makes me want to not watch it more because she's such an interesting character. What are they doing? There's so many things that they could do with her.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And but I feel like we kind of got sidetracked here. The point is, amazingly, this show, as far as like discussion on social media, you could feel it, but then also it's everybody in this business is talking about the show has just fallen off a cliff in terms of how many people are tuning in. It's changed completely. What used to be the biggest show on streaming is no longer. Not by a good
it kind of
bit.
feels like the turn in The Walking Dead.
And it's only the third season.
Yeah.
And this was
at least
this
that
was
one
like
lasted a little
this
bit
was
longer.
but think about it this way. This was the only like guaranteed success Disney Plus had. Also, this supposedly was the only thing Kathleen Kennedy and anybody at Lucasfilm had to like say, hey guys, hey, at least we have this. No matter, it doesn't matter if every project around us can't get off the ground worth a damn, at least we have this, and at least people are watching.
Jeez.
Now that's gone. Can you imagine like being Bob Iger right now? Like, so much cut out for him getting back in there, and so much that didn't fully reveal itself how much damage Chapek had done yet. But considering how much was already working against you, considering how much more now is working against you, do you think he ever thought, I'm sure he thought, but at least that Mandalorian is there. At least that's going to keep the things like in. What does Disney Plus have if not The Mandalorian?
Yeah. But also, you know, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Well, not a lot, but like, how much? I mean, yes, I understand that Chapek did do a lot of damage, but how much is he to blame? And then how much is Bob Iger to blame as well? He's the one. He was there when this thing opened. He was, you know, or when live. He was only gone for 2 years. Like, it's not that long for him to not know what's going on. You know what I mean?
You're 100% right. And at some point, I feel like because he's only been back a few months, a lot of slack is being given to him. But here's the thing. I feel like more than anything else, the biggest issue that is 100% his fault and nobody else's is Disney Plus. Disney Plus is his baby. Mm-hmm. Disney Plus is his creation. Disney Plus is what he not only pushed all of the company's resources into, but because he's Bob Iger and because it's Disney, he essentially led the way for all of the other studios themselves and all of the other distributors to follow suit and make their own streaming services. It can be argued that no one was more influential than beginning the streaming wars than Bob Iger himself. I believe it was on this podcast years ago we discussed there were rumors that at one point he was curious in like buying Netflix, and what of course the one thing that Disney has done throughout all of space and time is when they cannot convince the people they want to buy out to take the money, they basically just like make their own place with blackjack and hookers too. That's just what they do. I'm taking the line from Futurama, but it fits perfectly here. That's their playbook. And I'm sure there was a lot of hubris there that's like, you know what? We're fucking Disney. And at that point, like, we're like having like $5 to $6 billion grossing movies a year. We're fucking untouchable. Yeah. If anyone's going to challenge Netflix, it's going to be us. And we also have our library to bank on, and we're acquiring Fox and all those titles. We've got ESPN. We've got all of the other Fox properties that we're going to be acquiring. Like,
it's just so interesting to look at because Bob Iger, like, he has his good business side sometimes, but you know, looking back, I feel like he's done more like okay things than like great things. Does that make sense?
No, like, it makes perfect sense. I feel like we go ahead.
And I feel like a lot of the things that are just good is copying other people or taking something from somebody else. I think one of the, because I think they may have been the first to do it, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I think one of like the best business decisions that they have made is the VHS. When they started doing VHSs for their movies for people to watch at home. That was made Eisner. Them so much money, and it's why we have the Renaissance, you know?
It made them so much money, but it wasn't just them. It made them so much money not just for themselves, but then it also got all the other studios in turn. Like, if you think about it...
They were like the trendsetters rather than... You know, at least in that moment.
Well, I think
it hasn't happened since.
What happened in that era was Disney found out that keeping their movies locked away for decades and having no option for people to see them at home made them very lucrative, made them very popular, and people had that appetite to see them. And it wasn't just Disney that was prospering in like the VHS, DVD, home video sales. It was every studio. And we've been talking about this a lot in the last few weeks. And it says a lot that in recent weeks, among the many things that Bob Iger has said, one of them happens to be surprisingly This is the guy that said streaming is the future. This is the guy that, created Disney Plus and forced everybody to follow along with him. In 2023, he's saying that they need to take another look at, traditional verticals that include also specifically, he singled out home video.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about it like this, it is such a wackadoo thing that we're talking about, potentially anyway, Disney of all people taking a second look at the value of home video, because in recent years, that's something that every distributor and every studio has significantly downsized or completely done away with, to such a degree that Best Buy is pulling out completely. They're pulling out. They've already made the decision by this time next year, maybe by the end of next. We'll see if things turn around. But they seemingly were of the mind, Best Buy anyway. Who knows if maybe they'll just do videos on their website now, but which they may do. But for the most part, it's a rather open secret that Best Buy has kind of declared open warfare on physical media, and they no longer want to take up any space in their sales floor, which is kind of amazing to say, because at one point that was the place to go and see in a huge library of discs.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting. I wish we knew how much money it took for them to release the movies, because there was a point in time where David and I, we were out buying them all the time, and we would buy the special edition ones and stuff like that, and there would be times, there would be times where we would wait 1-2 days to go and buy it when we knew that it was coming out. It would be sold out. And, at the Disney store, we would sell the DVDs when they come out, and they would sell out. Sometimes, if the movie wasn't that popular, it would be a little bit hard. But if the movie was popular, we would have to turn people away and be I'm sorry, we don't have any more, And I don't understand why that was ever taken away. And I get it, there's streaming and stuff, but it was still such a big market for them to just be nope, we're done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I hope that maybe the studios are gonna take another look, because here's the thing. Well, why are they taking another look? If for those of you who haven't been listening in recent weeks, well, the answer is quite simple, and it was the same answer that we were kind of screaming at the top of our lungs. Again, think back to 3 years ago when we were having conversations of Universal releasing Trolls on premium video on demand, when we had Disney make the decision to put Mulan on Disney Plus, or I'm sorry, not Disney Plus, but I guess yes, Disney Plus, but you had to pay an add-on thing.
Mm-hmm. I forgot
the reason why, all those things happened, but when they were happening in real time, all of us were that's not going to happen, because that's just throwing away money. And at one point, here's the thing. Bob Iger said within a span of 5 years, Disney Plus would be profitable. Okay, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2020. Oh, look, we're coming up on 5 years, 2023 of Disney Plus, and they're in debt. And at the moment, the cause for a lot of these layoffs and mass firings, there are a lot of reasons, but part of the one of the highest reasons why he is doing that is because he needs to clear up something like $5 billion of cash, because they don't seem to have that. Think about that. Of all of the people, of all of the distributors and all of the studios and the companies, none of us ever would have thought that of all of them, the one that has spent such, a prolonged period of time at the top of the totem pole, which is Disney, would be in a situation like this where they're in need of like to save as much money as possible by firing people. And I think there is no bigger cause than that with the shockingly, well, I guess from the point of the executives, their point of view, the shockingly expensive avenue that, I mean, Disney producing shows and having a streaming service in and of itself is an expensive venture. But the reason why most every distributor did this to themselves was on this like promise that at some point it was not only going to be making money, but it was going to make more money than theatrical. And I feel like if we were saying it years ago, Alexis, why was it ridiculous? Because just look at the numbers, people. Look at the numbers. You can't get more clear proof of profitability and popularity, and as far as like making your money back on the movie, than in the traditional outlets, which is theatricality and home video. Putting movies immediately on streaming services only results in lost money. Like even recently with their Marvel films like Black Panther and Thor Love and Thunder, one of the things that's quite weird to me was that after 45 or 60, 70 days, I want to say in theaters, they didn't put those on premium video on demand where it could make even more money first. They did that and put it at Disney Plus at the exact same time, which is stupid because premium video on demand is for those people who don't buy discs, but they do buy films digitally. Well, that's the space. That's the window where you can recoup money or make more money. Fabelmans right now didn't make any money at the box office, but it did make a lot of money at home. It was consistently and still is in the top 10 on iTunes. So those, to me, those are spaces now where films who don't have any chance at the box office, unfortunately, but for the people who wait to stream them at home, they actually wait to just either buy it for a premium price or for a lower price of $10, $15, or they just rent it for $5. Like, all of that is money. And the idea that you don't think about that. You're throwing that money away.
And I remember fully like our conversations 3 years ago. We're saying the exact same thing, having the exact same reactions. Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Like the only I feel at that point later on in the year, it looked like the only thing that made their cause look halfway decent was that, well, streaming is hitting it big. People are watching streaming. Well, guess what? They were at home.
Yeah.
What else were they going to do?
Please.
What else were they going to do? They were literally locked in their homes the entire year. And now we're at a place where it's not as needed anymore. I wonder why. Because people finally can go back outside and, you know, get back to their lives and not be in front of a TV the entirety of the time. That's what changed. And I feel like in the pandemic kind of like fooled a lot of people into thinking, hey, maybe this can be a lot more, you know, profitable a lot faster than any of us believed. I still personally don't see how at some point streaming is supposed to make more money than theatricality. I've never believed those numbers. So there is a lot of course correction that needs to happen now. There's a lot of pausing that's happening. I don't know if you've noticed, but like it's been going around these last few weeks that all of the Marvel Disney Plus shows no longer have like release dates in their Disney Plus icon windows. Now they just have coming soon.
No.
They've all like had the pause button hit on them, and they just recently let go of a really high-ranking individual within Marvel Studios who, if I'm not mistaken, was, well, it's kind of remarkable that it was a woman. Of course, they let go the woman, right? You can't catch a break, it seems like, if you're a woman in this business. No, seriously, it's the truth. But Victoria Alonso is her name, and she was regarded in many ways as the number 2 in Marvel Studios, but particularly for spearheading the visual effects. And she evidently, according to reports, is responsible for the toxicity that was involved in the scandal that erupted. She was the one that was responsible for. She had like lists of people who she would like refuse to work with if they didn't acquiesce to the slightest changes. She's the one, and I don't want anybody to mistake this. She was not alone, but she was one of the people who was the most harshest and hawkish individuals when it came to like pressing her thumb on those poor visual effects artists to fucking make the changes, or else they would be fired, let go. Not only would they not work with Marvel again, but she would blacklist them. Like it would be it was a bad thing. And keep in mind, this person kept her job all throughout the scandal. And even to where we are right now, she didn't lose her job because of the scandal. Honestly, she didn't lose her job because of anything related to visual effects. The reason she lost her job, and according to a new report, sources familiar with the matter told the Diz Insider that the decision was made by Disney chairman Alan Bergman, whom the entirety of Marvel Studios reports to. Kevin Feige seemingly had nothing to do with the decision, but did not intervene either. One insider at the studio claims Alonso was completely blindsided by the decision after a very public appearance at the Oscars just 8 days earlier. So this is obviously a person who was not expecting to be let go. I believe she was dismissed on a Friday, and then she was gone from what last I read and everything.
She got the Chapek treatment.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. She did. Yeah, the change.
Damn.
Man, that still blows me how like that happened to him. He was here one day and like gone. It's like he died. He's just here one day and gone the next. And I guess somebody went to collect his things or something. I don't know. Just funny. But with her, she wasn't let go because of any of the scandals, which honestly she should have just for that, but nobody cared. Honestly, that's the least of Disney's concerns right now. Even on the best days, it would be the least of their concerns. The reason why she was let go was because somebody needed to take the fall for how much of a disaster Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, when it's all said and done, not only did it fail as far as steering any kind of fan excitement or conversation, but when it's all said and done, not only will it be one of the lowest grossing Marvel movies ever, this third Ant-Man movie, again, when the final numbers have been tabulated, and this has already been projected, it'll come in as making completely worldwide less money than the first Ant-Man movie. This is an epic disaster. An epic fucking disaster. And that comes off of a year to a year and a half of 2 years of largely underwhelming Marvel content. And if you think Star Wars has been imploding right now, they're panicking right now, I'm sure.
Somebody's
with
about to get the Bob Chapek treatment as well.
How bad like Mandalorian is performing. They thought that was the ace up their sleeve. That's crashed and burned already. And Marvel, I think Peter and I had this discussion a few weeks ago. He said, I don't think they can turn it around. I don't know how they can't turn it around. They're so baked in their ways. They're so set in their ways. They've already gone too far. I don't see how it can be salvaged, how it can be saved. I think it's only going to get worse from here. But Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was so bad and so put off audiences that we're now not only just talking about this being a Marvel issue or a Disney issue, but now we're in the space where everyone's talking about, wait a minute here. Are we beginning to see a shift, a realignment of general audiences and critics alike turning the corner on how willing and or excited they are to entertain spending their money to see any comic book film? Because think about it this way, and I think some of us just forgot that it was a disaster in large part because we forgot that it even existed. But lest we forget, well, that's not fair because Black Panther did come out like right after, and that did make money and that was profitable. But if you look at it from a different perspective, let's just ignore Black Panther right now. But in October, you had a massive box office bomb. It wasn't even a disappointment, it was a bomb with another comic book film, Black Adam. And as I say it, I'm sure a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, that's a movie that exists. It was a massive box office bomb. It was also one of the worst comic book films I've ever seen in my life. It was awful. Peter said he tried watching it, he couldn't get through it on HBO Max. No. It's awful.
It's just so bad.
It's bad. And
they were showing it. They have what's it called? They show movies in like the houses that I live in, like the like movies in the park or whatever, and they'll have signs like all over like the neighborhood. And last or 2 weeks ago or something, they were showing Black Adam, and me and David turned to each other. We literally just go, no, just watch Shazam.
Black Adam is terrible on every level, and it performed that way as far as the box office is concerned. And I would say that what I most appreciated from Black Adam's existence as a movie is how humiliated Dwayne The Rock Johnson was. That was nice to see, and I was happy to see that. Because he's somebody that, quite frankly, has needed that for the longest time. He's been told for far too long he's hot shit and he can make like anything a box office success. Mm-hmm. You can't say that anymore. You can't say that anymore. That was a bona fide box office bomb.
This was all him.
He didn't have to do that, but he was the one that made the decision to like put himself front and center in every aspect of this movie, even as far as like how it was sold. He chose to put himself out there and be like the movie's number one hype man. And this is what happens. Like you just fall on the sword. So that movie was so bad in and of itself. And then to follow that horrible film and that horrible box office performance with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's two in a row. That are abysmal. And I think between that and the overall sense of disappointment people are having with most comic book things these days, I feel as if they're tuning out, because how else do you explain what happened this weekend to poor little Shazam? You can't, and honestly, for as far as Shazam movies, they can't catch a break, because the first one couldn't catch a break in terms of visibility. It was sandwiched in between Captain Marvel, and that film was sold off the idea that somehow this character would be anything close to relevant in the Avengers films. She wasn't, and it was a waste. But because of that, people entertained it so much so that it made $1 billion. So that was before Shazam. Then Shazam came out, and Shazam, poor little Shazam, it's coming off of, the previous year Aquaman made $1 billion, but still, the DC films had a terrible reputation. It had so much going against it. And then I assume most people were ignoring it, mostly because they wanted to save their money for Endgame that would come out later that month. Later that month, Avengers Endgame came out. So next to nobody saw the first movie. So that was just terrible timing. And then now, Shazam! Fury of the Gods had the misfortune of having to follow Black Adam, which is the previous DC comic book movie, which was utter crap and performed terribly. But it now had to follow the more recent Marvel disaster, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And so why do I think, what's the reason for why people didn't show up? There it is. The only thing that's going to ruin a comic book movie going is if all of them or most of them are bad. And guess what? We're kind of already there.
Yeah.
We're kind of already there. And why? And you know what? This is why the critics have also turned too. There's a lot of other reasons that are involved there, but I just feel it's so incredibly unfair that Shazam! Fury of the Gods, that only 58% of critics give it a positive review. I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie twice. I saw it twice. I really liked it the first time, and I loved it the second time. I gotta be honest, it was even better the second time. That film is everything I want out of a comic book movie. All of the ingredients. Honestly, Alexis, when I was watching that film, you know what I had in my mind was our discussion of Ant-Man and Quantumania, and what you and I were listing off all the things that were missing from that film. All the things that was missing from that film and all the recent Marvel films was in Shazam. There you go. It was right there, served to us on a silver platter. This is exactly what I've been wanting, what I've been asking for them to do. And it's so disappointing that the few times you and I get what we want, it ends up being slapped away in the most violent and brute way possible from the general audiences. Every time it just gets slapped away.
We just need to stop talking.
Batman wasn't one of those times, but still, it didn't make $1 billion.
But I also think that another big reason why people are not watching them is kind of what is happening right now in Star Wars. That I think people saw Andor, and even though a lot of people didn't watch it, but those that did. And of course, you have the loudest people are the ones that were complaining, but you did have those people that were wait, no, this is really good. And I think that with Batman, that the same thing is happening with that. People saw this movie and they were wait, we can get this? We can actually see something like this and not what we've been watching for the last 10 years, the same movie. Over and over and over again. You could change you could have fun characters. You could have something look pretty. You know what I mean? I think that, people are, it's happening with both things that people are
it's
no,
you know what? You know what I think about, Lexus? It's like that moment from the Star Wars trailer, the Force Awakens trailer, where you have Supreme Leader Snoke say, "There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?" It kind of feels that way, that people are beginning to wake up from this daze. And it's not like we didn't have great alternatives before. In the height of Marvel movies, we still had things like Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan coming out. Mm-hmm. We had X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past. We also had Wonder Woman. Like, there were other great, like, comic book movies that were happening at that time that were special in their own right because they went into territories that Marvel Studios wouldn't go to. But part of why they would get lost in the shuffle would be because, like, well, it was the storyline that was, like, so getting people ramped up. And now that that's gone, it almost feels like, well, maybe the only reason people cared in the first place was because of that storyline. Maybe the only reason they excused a lot of the inadequacies in a lot of their later Phase 3 films like Black Panther or Captain Marvel, the only reason maybe they even excused those inadequacies was because they were just willing to ride that through line all the way until it was over. And guess what? It ended over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, coming up next month, it would be 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And we haven't gotten anything that, I mean, some movies, you know, I think did catch us, but, you know, for the most part, we just say it. Just say the one. I mean, I don't know what some movies you're talking about, but I mean, like, if you're listening, I mean, we had mentioned earlier that, like, well, why does it always happen to movies that we like Shazam, that get, like, so slapped away? Well, Eternals was slapped down hard. No one cared about that. And you know what? Really, I want to, like, punch the TV every time I hear somebody say that. But I feel like I'm sick and tired of The Last Jedi being alluded to as some kind of failure. Doesn't it fucking piss you off to this very day? It does. I was talking to a friend the other day, and we had just finished watching The Last of Us, and then we started getting into because I mean, we were talking about, like, Mando as well, and I literally was like, I hate it. I mean, the usual stuff that we talk about. He was saying the complete opposite of me. And I don't understand. He liked, I can't even remember the name, the last Star Wars movie.
The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah. I just don't understand. Like, I don't get it. I want to understand why people like these things, but I don't.
You should tell him to listen to our audio commentary on The Rise of Skywalker. It's pretty funny. The audio commentary. Have we ever, like, crapped on a movie harder than that one?
Probably.
You think?
Maybe. I think that we've talked a lot about Mandalorian.
Well, I meant a movie. I know we don't want to go into this, like, the differences of the movie or
every Disney live action.
I mean, I didn't say we don't crap on a lot of movies. What I was trying to suggest was, which is the one that over the years we've crapped on the most? Is what I was trying to, like, ask. Clearly we crap on a lot of movies. And deservedly so. I mean, it's just a reality of it all. But, I mean, to me, ultimately, the reality for why Bob Iger has found himself in this situation and why Marvel and Star Wars particularly are collapsing, and also why comic book films are not necessarily hitting as well anymore, is because it's all the same reason. Every step of the way, except for very minor circumstances or exceptions here and there with offshoot projects that are not connected to the overall main line, through line of whatever franchise we're talking about here, they've refused to shake it up. They've refused to change. They still have the same formula. DC, for the longest time, tried to copy that formula. It's done. And things like Andor are only, and on, quite frankly, the quality of The Crown, the quality of House of the Dragon, the quality of The Last of Us, the quality of Peacemaker, the quality of Stranger Things, all of that is only just further making the case that most of what you produce is inferior and mediocre and no longer interesting. And at one point in time, they excused it for a number of reasons. Those reasons no longer exist. And seemingly all at once, you have Star Wars, you have Marvel, you have Disney Animation, you have Pixar. Those are your main four. And you know what? I'm going to say it also. You have your Disney live action. All at once, your 5 main horses are sinking. We've already discussed how Marvel and Star Wars are going downhill, and honestly, they've been on that trajectory for a while now. Animation, Disney Animation, and Pixar, those are entirely... Exactly. Those are, well, technically speaking, I feel like they did it to themselves with Marvel and Star Wars too, but maybe not more directly than when it came with the animation. Those were in completely self-inflicted wounds.
And not the studios necessarily. I'm talking about.
You know what? Thank you for clarifying that, because there are a lot of people out there who are calling for Pete Docter and Jennifer Lee to be fired.
No, leave them alone.
They weren't the problem. They were the only people who were keeping the things, who were like riding the ship.
Do you really think that they would be okay with the movies that they've been working years? Animation takes years. That they would be okay for them not to go and make money?
Yeah, no. Like Disney, the executives at Disney diminished the value and they diminished the profitability of Disney animated and Pixar films. And you know how I know that? Because look how much money Puss in Boots has made.
So ridiculous.
Puss in Boots, I mentioned, I want to say 2 episodes ago, is making money right now. It's still in theaters. It's you can buy the disc now. It's on digital and it's on Peacock. There are a number of ways you can watch that movie, and it's making money everywhere. That is amazing. That's unbelievable how much money that film is made and how popular it is and all the different ways it's making money. And yet
I would
Disney
be so pissed. I mean, I am, but like, if I was...
Right?
Oh my God.
Like, that should be turning red. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It was given...
That should be every single movie that they've released since.
Mm-hmm. So those are the more frustrating ones because they were self-inflicted. Nevertheless, Pixar Animation and Marvel and Star Wars are all kind of like going downhill at the same time. Pixar and Disney, I don't want to say their quality is going downhill, but as far as their popularity is because of what the executives did to them. That's a very unique circumstance. Now, the other one where I would say is beginning to go downhill is, in addition to how we've all seen the lack of hype and the lack of conversation that The Mandalorian Season 3 is, failing to even steer, there's now been at least 2 trailers and several images released from the upcoming Little Mermaid adaptation, which now that's the 5th wing. That's the Disney live action vertical. And you haven't had the chance to talk about that trailer. We can weave that in right here and right now. But even I have been shocked to see how miserably, altogether anyway, the trailers and the images, it's being received among fans and audiences. And I feel, considering the direction that all the other Disney verticals are going downhill, there is now a very real question as to whether or not it'll even make $1 billion. This is a Disney live action remake. Remember that the Lion King Jon Favreau film, one of the worst, if not the worst film that came out of the last decade, that made 1.6 billion, I want to say, worldwide, which is disgusting. What a disgusting sentence. But these movies were so endlessly profitable. And the idea that a Disney live action remake of a Disney Renaissance film like The Little Mermaid would fail to capture $1 billion worldwide, Alexis, if that doesn't happen, wow. Right now, we're seeing Disney suffer in ways we didn't think could be possible. And hopefully it gets worse. And I'm sorry to say, I'm happy to see what's happening. You know, I'm not happy about potentially Pete Docter, Jennifer Lee's careers being put in jeopardy because, honestly, they're the least blameless people in all of this. Like, they worked like the dogs, honestly, and the movies they produced, I personally feel, were top notch.
It gets me so angry. Like, this is the best that Disney Animation, both Pixar and Walt Disney, have been in years. And they're getting treated so bad.
Whereas, I mean...
And it's because of them that we're getting these things.
Right.
Let's not forget who was head of both studios before. And what... And, you know, I'm just saying.
And it just seems so unfair because, like, look at the many mistakes Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy have made.
And nobody's blaming them. Well, I guess Kathleen Kennedy.
No, well, Kathleen, she's a woman, so they're gonna blame her no matter what. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that's not a factor in this. I'm not saying she's blameless. I think, honestly, it's quite baffling. Most of the decisions that she's made as head and chief of that company, to be fair to everybody involved, even to her, the only word for it is baffling, and also confusing as to how this keeps happening to her. The same thing keeps happening to her where she's like in the process of hiring new people to make, you know, movies and shows. They get to a certain, you know, bit of the way into development and then all of a sudden they walk away from her. It's like a curse, honestly. And that is weird. And at some point it's not them, it's you. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said about, you know, her inadequacies as far as like being the head of the company. But why does she get more hate than Kevin Feige?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, right? I mean, Star Wars fans are more hateful than Marvel fans, generally speaking. Star Wars fans, I'm not going to say by and large because that makes it seem as if I'm talking about most of them. No, I'm just saying there's a huge minority, I want to put it that way, a vocal minority of Star Wars fans who are openly like hostile, aggressive, racist, homophobic, sexist, all of that combined. And that's just one minority. And then there are a whole bunch of pockets of people out there who believe that she shouldn't be running the ship because she's not a true Star Wars fan, or she doesn't know what Star Wars is, or, you know, she didn't have a plan for the sequel trilogy. I mean, there's so many, in my view, nonsensical groups of people who hate her for no other reason, in my view, than because she has a uterus and because she has a vagina. Let's just be real, and she's got boobs. That's the only reason why I feel like she gets a lot more hate. Now, granted, Kevin Feige's Marvel movies are more beloved, sure, than the sequel trilogy is. Now, I'd argue that's not really a bearing on quality. It's just a bearing on the quality of the people who like the projects. It's the quality of a human being you are. And I feel like the reaction that The Last Jedi received, I don't think there's a more clear-cut like example you can point to. That movie, by all accounts, is great. At worst, you can say it's good. And the idea that half of the fans looked at that movie, and that's not even fair because that's not even true. Like, look how much money it made in theaters and how much money it made at home. That's not even true that it's like a divisive film in that sense. It's talked about that way because of how much the vocal minority had. But I think it's all, the proof is there in the pudding, because like that movie launched the careers of hate-fueled YouTube channels like Geeks and Gamers that only exist to grift on people and just sell hatred and anger and then not push anything forward. And it's all based on this idea that Star Wars should not move forward. It should be about the same people. And that's in the best sense. In the worst sense is because, well, they hated that they put in women and minorities at the center of it. They hated that they all of a sudden realized it's about something and it's about politics, and they're now making the revisionist argument that it was never like Star Wars has a unique set of circumstances that Marvel doesn't have that make that environment inherently much more toxic. And when you have a woman leading that company, of course, she was going to get so much more hate. That doesn't excuse, quite frankly, her own incompetence. There's been plenty of that here and there, but it's the lay of the land. And we have to be honest about that. Does she get a fair shake? No. Did she ever really? No. Did she do a good job? Someday she did. She did. Before it fell off a cliff, The Mandalorian was the biggest streaming show of all time. And look at the financial and critical successes of The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rogue One. $3 billion grossing films, 3 films in a row that all, in one way or another, not in the same way, but all in their own ways, clicked with fans, right? Mm-hmm. What else is in her corner? Well, under her wing, you have the revival of the Clone Wars. You have Rebels. You've got Bad Batch right now. Even though it's regarded as a failure or divisive, I quite happen to enjoy Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's like, and then of course there's Andor, right? So like on the whole,
there's something there. There's something there.
Yeah.
She just
So it's like, hey, she's got. I feel she has more wins than people are willing to give her credit for. But the problem is, a lot of her misses are like, that last Star Wars movie. And look, she didn't direct the movie, in her defense, but she was the one that hired the person to direct the movie. And again, to be extra kind to her, even though I shouldn't be, but to be extra kind to her.
If Kevin Feige can go in there and mix things up a bit, I'm sure she can too. Yeah. And I'm sure, she might get the last say. So, I don't know.
Yeah. It just feels like, overall, Disney as an entity is going down, and that is going to cause all the competition, all the other distributors to reevaluate what they put their resources into. And if it means that we're going to move away from an era that is only dominated by big blockbuster films, and we're going to get some, honestly, any kind of experimentation, I'm all for it. I think, and you know what? I'm not going to be one of these people that says, I called this happening, because I myself am so surprised how quickly it's happening. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised with the way that it's happening. But I think it was an easy call back in 2020, early 2020, 3 years ago, when Chapek was announced to be the new CEO. That first podcast we did, I said, you know what? This decade in Disney, it's not going to be good for them. In my head, I didn't have all the things. I'm not saying I'm an oracle or I called it, guys.
It just didn't feel right. Something was off.
And now, in a span of 2 months, all the dominoes are falling at once. Look at that Little Mermaid trailer. It's not going over well. I mean, it was never going to go over well with us, but it's just not going over well. What have you seen as far as the response to that trailer and that project overall? By the way, remember, this is a project that has Lin-Manuel Miranda attached to it. It's going nowhere. I don't think anybody cares. Aside from the diehards that will go see it no matter what. To be clear, this is a movie that is going to make money, but and
I will be one of those people.
Sure. We're gonna watch it, but we're gonna probably be miserable watching it. But sure, we'll watch it. But yes, your thoughts.
I mean, I've just heard the same thing since the first trailer, that it looks, you can't see anything. You can't. And honestly,
turn on the lights.
Yeah, literally. But honestly, like, the criticism doesn't go past that. I guess, like, my own things is, it just looks like crap. Even, like, the things that you can see, it looks so bad. And, even I in the trailer, I liked the parts that were outside of the water.
Those
and I think that they said that they were gonna change it up a little bit in that area. So I mean, I guess we'll see. But it just, Sebastian, what the heck was that?
Oh my god!
What was that? It just, I don't know. And then we got to see a little bit of it, but why?
Are you talking about the character design of Sebastian? Because that's all I can think that you're even talking about. Because was he even in that trailer?
Yes. Go look at it right now.
Did he have any lines?
I think he did. He might have.
I don't remember hearing him talk in the trailer.
He said, "She's got legs."
I mean, it's so gross to me how Disney fans just refuse to engage with the outright theft that Disney is committing against themselves and the original creators and writers of those films. That, I mean, just the disrespect, the same lines, the same posters, the same trailers.
Because one of the things that stick out to me, even, in the past live action ones, is for every live action trailer, the Disney people that we follow have always been like, oh my god, look at this, it's so good, blah blah blah. But then, and okay, like, maybe they do like it, whatever, but then with this one, I'm just like, please, like, you cannot look me in the face and tell me that this looks good. I don't believe you. And
the visual effects look, I mean, to say that it looks awful and that it looks like it's crap would be overly charitable. Anytime this thing goes to a sequence underwater, I think it's fair to say it falls apart completely. It falls apart completely. How is this movie going to work if every scene underwater, it doesn't?
Can you imagine the under the sea part? Oh my.
Also, I know you're like low key like boycotting James Cameron's Avatar movie, but like you, I'm sure, have seen like some snippets of the underwater sequences. Truly, like, that was a new bar.
The movie looks amazing. I never said that it didn't. It wasn't going to.
Right.
And I'm not boycotting it. I just don't like those movies.
You refuse to see it. You just refuse to see the new one and everything. It's fine, whatever. But like, I mean, the second one anyway is amazing. But yes, no one ever doubted the visual spectacle of the movies, but the underwater sequences in the last installment were legitimately life-changing. They were probably the best special effect that's ever been created. Is how amazing they look, especially when you're watching it as it was intended with the 3D. You literally feel like you're swimming with those characters in Pandora, and the difference that I think it's notably different that those underwater sequences were shot in broad daylight and you can see everything beautifully and crisp as if you were there. Mm-hmm. Whereas even in things like with Black Panther and more likely or with The Little Mermaid is that all of these underwater shots are just so dark you can't see much of anything.
And I guess like the thing about all these movies is the animated versions of these movies is that they created new things with each of these movies. They invented
Technology.
new, yes. And I feel like I would respect these movies a little bit more if they tried to do that with,
Or if
I
they
guess,
tried,
like, with,
period.
Yeah.
With anything.
But, like, I guess, like, the one that I can say with that is, and I'm just saying, but with The Lion King, it was crap. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, it was. But the way that it was animated, because it wasn't live action, like, it looked good. Like...
That's like the only thing. Well, it looked good in the context of how far they were able to push the medium. So, like, if the goal, and it very much was, to make an animated film with realistic looking animation, it is a tremendous success in that department, and it did definitely push the boundaries of what could be what could be done with that with that, for sure. I mean, in the context
and that's why I think, because you guys shit on that movie way more than I do, and I'm not saying that I liked it, but I do give it that respect that it was able to do something.
I'd be very curious to hear you like say that if you were forced to watch that again right now.
I probably still would, because even like the first time that I saw it, like I remember being like, it looks good. I can't say that about any of the other movies.
Out of context, you're right.
I think the only other one is the Cinderella one because it did something different.
Yeah.
To
be fair to Cinderella, that legitimately is a good movie.
It is.
That's a good movie. The rest of them are not.
No. But that's like one of the things that I can say that I respect out of that movie. That, it did something different. And I did enjoy it more than all the other ones. But all the other ones didn't do anything for them to stand out, for them to justify why they're being made. You know what I mean?
Do we consider, I think at some point we have to, but do we consider Maleficent and Cruella in this same lineup?
Cruella, I think, yes. And again, that's one of the other ones that I enjoyed.
It did something new.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I'm endlessly like entertained by Cruella. I actually enjoy that movie quite a bit. Yeah.
And Maleficent, again, I don't like it. I feel the same way that I do with The Lion King. Mm-hmm. But they went somewhat really dark with it. Whether it was a good choice, no. But they took a little bit of a risk. I'm
sorry. I should have clarified. So? The Academy Award winning Cruella.
Yes. But like those are the ones that stand out a little bit more because they did something different. And in this one, with The Little Mermaid, you're remaking the movie that brought Disney back to life. What are you doing?
To me, it's the perfect recipe for the final insult. The final insult, and the way that I've laid it down this last hour, may be the final nail in the coffin. I don't know what, if anything, Bob Iger can do to fix anything. I think he just needs to pick somebody halfway competent and get the fuck out of there. He really does. Like, this is a disaster. All of it is a disaster. Yeah. Anyway, can we talk about this drama? What's happening with Warner Brothers and James Gunn, and Shazam and Black Adam? And like, this is so like, it's so funny to me that no matter what, DC and everybody involved in DC just can't get away from like all this drama. Like, it was last week. It was so funny. By the way, I love Rachel Zegler. I feel people should love Rachel Zegler. I think she's only been in 2 movies, but she's been great in both of those movies. I don't think she meant it as a bad thing, but I thought it was hilarious. And even more hilarious how people were taking offense to, on the red carpet, she was asked, so what made you like join the cast of Shazam? And her response was, honestly, I just needed a job.
She said, I need money. She said, nobody saw my last movie.
Right, nobody saw that movie. And they only saw it at home, if that. I love that answer because it's so brutally honest. It's hilarious, and I don't see why people would be offended or that would be a controversial remark. It's the brutal, honest truth. And I feel like that's kind of what makes me like endear myself to her, is like how open she is and how excited I am for like all the projects that she has coming forward, you know? So that was one thing. Then Ben Affleck didn't do anybody any favors when he basically just said that at one point he almost jumped off a building or something when he was working at DC, and he would not ever entertain. I know he would not entertain wanting to be a part of what he called James Gunn's DC universe. In my last podcast, I made my interpretation pretty clear that I think he was referring to comic book movies in general these days.
He was miserable. And the fact that people are saying otherwise, that it's because of James Gunn, like...
He wasn't around when that shit happened.
Exactly.
Like, what are you trying to say? Exactly. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there.
And and also, like, do you guys not remember literally how miserable he looked the entire time he was playing Batman? Do you remember how much people shit on him because he was playing Batman? I feel like he got it even worse than Robert Pattinson did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least Pattinson has a good movie.
Exactly.
I mean, Pattinson has that going for him. I feel like right now we're living in a time where there is the DC fans. A lot of DC fans have become so disheartened and disappointed because of practically a decade of missed opportunity after missed opportunity, after lackluster film after lackluster film. And they're basically now starting at square one. But the thing is this, a lot of DC fans online seemingly are refusing to even let them get started with a new fresh start. Because like a lot of them, quite frankly, are so butthurt that their favorites, whether it be Gal Gadot, I don't think most people are like really too wrenched about her leaving, but I think mostly it's about Henry Cavill, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are like so furious about that. It's coloring their overall attitude toward this new leadership, and it's making them be far more critical than they need to be. And they're just like, they're creating more problems themselves. And that's not excusing any of the other people involved, and we're going to get to that right now. But I feel like if you want a fresh start, it's happening. It's going to happen. Let them get there. Don't fucking like shit the bed for them before they've even had a start. And like, yes, James Gunn himself is active on Twitter, but here's the thing. I thought for years now, people wanted a creative to be more engaged with them online. And in the first few weeks, it was actually pretty interesting to see how that was looking like. But then it took a more negative tone after it was clear Cavill wasn't coming back. And then, of course, don't even get any of us started on the the Snyder cultists still being around and still causing problems for them, but like I feel like it's starting to get to a point where Gunn maybe needs to just not even respond anymore, because it's keeping the story going, and
that's not him.
Thank you for saying that.
It's not him.
Thank you for saying that, because most people aren't saying what you just said. It's not him that's causing it, and somehow we're getting it twisted and framing him as the one that's at fault. Yes, he isn't the one that's starting shit, but I think what's also not being appreciated enough is that some of these people need to be smacked down and put in their place. Like, I just think it's ridiculous that this is how you can tell it's like the talking points, everyone's thinking the same thing. And how the talking points are it's like a list of things to complain about, and they're just handed off to each other. And you can tell how pervasive a talking point it's become that Gunn felt the need. Well, no, that someone felt the need to at Gunn, and Gunn responded because it concerned his wife, Jennifer Holland. Jennifer Holland, who's an actor who's been in Suicide Squad and Peacemaker and has made cameo appearances in other DC films. James Gunn didn't cast her. I think it was Peter Safran who cast her in the first place.
He literally just started. Like,
I mean, if that, right? But then
hasn't done anything.
And the thing is, people are apparently mad at him because he's giving himself jobs and his friends jobs. Like, literally, somebody at him and said,
"He's always done that."
But he's not the only one. Everybody in Hollywood does that. It's not just him. Everybody's always done that. And somebody added him saying, stop putting your wife in your projects.
No.
That's how comfortable somebody felt to just at Gunn. That, like, everybody was like getting that talking point handed to them. It's like, stop putting your wife. And then in Variety also was a bit like sneaky, because their headline was, when it was like confirmed that not only would he be writing, but he is directing Superman Legacy, the headline that Variety ran with was, James Gunn hires himself to direct the Superman movie. Like, do you know what this creates? It creates this like feeling of, why is it that all of a sudden people have it out for him? Because all of the reasons that people are saying they're upset with him are stupid. There's no good reason for anyone to say, or for anyone to have it out for him. It doesn't make any sense. Like, he's literally, all he has done is made great movies and great shows. And then this is the treatment that he gets. This is just a bunch of abuse. And so any little thing
for these movies to come out.
I know, right?
For people to eat shit.
And to shut the fuck up. Yeah. Like, even right now, there are people like Grace Randolph, of all people, who she can't, I don't even think, and I've seen her stuff, she seems to have this pathological thing where she can't admit to herself that she just hates him, and that she hates his projects, and then she tries to rationalize that by like adding in her business acumen, because she paints him as somebody who's not a popular entertainer. She paints him as somebody who can't make movies that everybody can enjoy, which is so far removed from the truth to begin with. But she's so convinced that she feels like he's just another Zack Snyder. And she feels like her fans are Snyder cultists. And she's so convinced that it's going to fail that she's openly calling for David Zaslav to sell Warner Brothers to Universal, and then Universal to fire James Gunn and cancel everything and start from scratch. Which is so...
What is he doing?
she's upset that he's keeping the Peacemaker people and the Suicide Squad people. And that's it. Let alone how disgusting it is to any solution be. I mean, do you have any idea how fucking disastrous it would be if Universal bought Warner Brothers? That's worse than Disney buying Fox. That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's too much consolidation of the movie studios. That's a disaster, all because you want a fresh, clean reboot for the DC universe? That's not worth it. Not anywhere close to being worth it. It's just so stupid to me. Also, she has, again, I feel like her hatred for him is so deep-seated she can't see the lunacy in a lot of the things that she suggests. Like the other day she was saying that it was weird for James Gunn to forget his father's birthday. And she was somehow saying that him writing that in the tweet was somehow connected to Zack Snyder and him losing
what the fuck?
And him losing his daughter, and she was running off the idea that Gunn was trying to one up Zack Snyder.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
It is such a ridiculous and honestly really offensive thing to say. Like, I don't even know if she herself realizes how bad some things she says are taken. Like, you remember, I had to laugh because they're so stupid, but remember those clips I sent a few months ago about her reaction to The Fabelmans? And her reaction to it was going off on this like rant about like how dare Steven Spielberg lecture us about divorce when he got divorced.
Oh no, that's so bad. That's like the fact that you even came up with something like that.
Right?
Like what does that say about you? Like, do you have these thoughts in your head? Like, do you do these things? You know what I mean? It's so icky.
Oh my god, it is. Oh my god, it's so bad. Did I share that with the main chat? I had to have. Did you see that clip?
I think you said it in a podcast.
No. I did. No. I don't think I did. The one where she's talking about what I just sent you. No, not what I just. Here it is. You need to hear the clip for yourself because
also started off with a Superman story. And now James Gunn is starting off with a Superman story. I mean, it's a little single white female, but, it's interesting. It's really interesting. And on that note, Zack Snyder had a very, very heartbreaking story about his family that coincided with Justice League because he had a family tragedy. And I thought it was a little bit odd that James Gunn also put a family tragedy, the death of his father, and decided to associate it with his Superman movie. It was just a weird take, and it was a weird twist that he forgot his father's birthday. I don't think you wouldn't forget a relative's birthday, especially if they were as close as James Gunn said that he was. And then I don't know why he didn't mention this in January when they announced the Superman release date. You would have been like, when you're saying the date out loud, sometimes people might forget what day it is, when the actual day comes. Who hasn't forgotten what day it is, right? But when you're saying the day out loud, you would be like, oh, wait a minute, I've said that day out loud my whole life because it's my dad's birthday. And then also, I don't know why he needed to say he forgot. I don't know why he couldn't have just said, oh, my brother and I think it's really great. And so it was so many layers and twists and, unnecessarily so. And then again, when you think about the personal aspect to, it seems like it's mirroring Zach's very personal and very real. I know that was very, this is real too, but it is like a little bit weird. It's very similar. It's extremely similar. Don't forget, Zack Snyder also.
That is so insane. She's crazy, dude.
I'm sorry, that's downright psychotic. That's just psychotic. Like, I'm crying right now because I'm just laughing. Like, who thinks to, like, connect the dots there? Unless you already feel that James Gunn has it out for Zack Snyder. I mean, I don't know how does your mind even connect the two? Like, she's basically saying that James Gunn felt the need to one-up Zack Snyder in terms of personal tragedy. Like, first of all, who feels the need to one-up Zack Snyder? That sounds a bit offensive, but I mean, it is. I mean, Zack Snyder is, I'm sorry. I'm happy that he's an artist that was able to express himself artistically in a business and an industry that so often doesn't allow creatives to do that. And I'm happy for him personally, even especially because of the personal tragedy that he suffered, of course. And as a person to person, I feel for him. But removing that element for just a bit and just acknowledging the reality of the situation, that man is singularly responsible, more so than anybody else, for the disastrous ruin that DC finds itself still to this very day. There is no one more responsible than Zack Snyder for the mess that everybody is in right now.
Mm-hmm.
All of the drama, all of the backstabbing, all of the bitch slapping, all of the underhanded comments that are, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for Zack Snyder fucking up the place so bad. And I feel like, do people just forget that? Anyway, that was psychotic.
That was so bad. Oh my god. I don't know why you guys and David, I don't know why you guys listen to these people that
because she's funny. She's funny. I mean, legitimately, she's crazy, and every now and then she gets I'm being legit here. Sometimes she says things that are 100% accurate. Like her review of that Jordan Peele movie that came out last year, legitimately, no joke, was one of the best reviews and analysis of the movie I've seen on the entire internet. So the thing is with her, she's legitimately a crazy person. Like, you don't know what she's gonna say or where she's gonna come from. Like, you have no, like, who would have expected somebody to say this? Like this, like, she's entertaining. I mean, she's, in moments like this, it's far more disturbing than it is entertaining, but I'm still kind of laughing because, wow, did she really just say that? Like, like, I mean, there's a reason I sent clips of her often to you guys, because I either I find it funny or she pisses me off. Mostly she pisses me off, but that in and of itself can be funny and humorous to other people. But for instance, in spite of the fact that I think she's like, either she's dating The Rock or she feels she needs to simp for him, why she's defending him so hard. Because I feel the opposite. I feel like the trash talking that's being directed at him, I think, is well deserved. And yet we somehow both agree Shazam 2 is a good movie. It's like, again, I don't know. She's like, also, do you know, her favorite movie, I think, is Saving Mr. Banks.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. Like, you never know what you're gonna get with that woman. So that's why I this is why you would tune in, for the crazy. Anyway, so Shazam 2 failed at the box office, and I have to say, honestly,
I had hope, and I'm really sad. I really, really had hope. I was like, maybe they'll watch this one. Because there was some marketing for it.
I love Shazam 2, but I feel somehow the trailers I found to be grating. I don't know if it's just because I feel in general people are a little bit tired of comic book movies. And this was a very comic book movie in the marketing, and I think that may have turned some people off. But I don't think it was the reason people didn't show up. I think it was so many factors happening at once that I think we've already kind of like spoken of. But I do have to say though, I'm so proud of Warner Brothers for their initial instinct as their response to the film performing so poorly to just throw The Rock under the bus. I am here for it. I was laughing so hard all day. I think on was it? I think it was yesterday, right? Or was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. All day long, because they literally like gave The Wrap, one of the outlets, a whole hit piece saying that it was basically The Rock's fault for why Shazam underperformed. Now, we can get into the mechanics of how accurate that is. I'm not interested in how accurate that is. I mean, we can get into it, but it's like, I just feel it's so funny. It's so funny how like, and it's brilliant because it changed the conversation. Now, instead of like, wow, Shazam 2 really stunk up the place, now it's like, wow, The Rock looks really bad here. And he kind of maybe hurt the film overall. And it's like, appeal to audiences. But for me personally, why I'm so happy about that is because I feel ultimately it all comes from a true place. I believe first that The Rock and him waving his dick around with the decisions that he himself willed into existence contributed to an environment that overall led to people not being very interested in this movie. I mean, for one, he did make an awful movie in Black Adam. And that is supposed to be in a small way. At one point, it was supposed to be in a really big way. But the character of Black Adam is associated with Shazam. And so if you make a really bad Black Adam movie, how is that not going to affect Shazam? So just by him making a terrible movie, that in and of itself hurt them. Also, him being a prima donna diva hurt things even further. He refused to have any kind of like cameo in his movie, and he refused to appear on screen alongside Zachary Levi because he felt he's not a big enough star. I'm in the big leagues. He's not.
Please.
And so that's why you have a Shazam movie without Black Adam, and that's why you have a Black Adam solo movie, and it overall just like diminished people's appetite for, I mean, if there was a Shazam movie out in theaters this week that had Black Adam as the villain, I think we'd have a very different story. A much different story. But we don't have that. And why don't we have that? Because The Rock refused. He refused to engage. He refused to even entertain the notion of him being on screen with Zachary Levi. And so what did he do? He went back to Warner Brothers and he said, you know what? Fuck Zachary Levi, but if we can get Superman back, I want to fight Superman because I'm The Rock, and obviously I'm as popular, if not more popular than Superman. That's the mentality that went into all of these decisions and what created this environment. I don't know how you can walk away from that article and knowing what we know now and kind of what we always suspected and not blame The Rock for a large part. And also more so specifically, I don't blame the Warner Brothers executives and I don't blame the people involved in Shazam for being angry at The Rock. I would be pissed at The Rock too.
Yeah, that's so like insulting.
Incredibly insulting. And then of course, what was even funnier was that on social media that same day, Zachary Levi like had like screen like quotes from the article and with a caption that said "The truth shall set you free," which I thought was so funny.
Him.
Yeah,
I freaking love Zachary Levi. Oh my god! Any interview that he does, I'm like on it. I love him.
And yet, I don't.
And you know what? Because
Go ahead.
Really, we've talked about the movie, but we haven't talked about the movie.
We need to.
And I love the movie. It made me cry.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that, but I thought it was so fucking funny. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Me and David literally could not shut up. We were laughing so hard.
Yeah.
But I forgot what I was gonna say. Hold on. So the twist at the end.
Which one? At the very end?
Yes.
Like after the climax?
Yes.
The one that involves the cameo?
No.
Wait, which twist? Because there's the.
Okay, are we talking?
Okay. If you haven't seen the movie, odds are you haven't, based on the box office. So probably who cares? But we're gonna just in case if anybody's listening, we're not gonna go into spoilers. So go ahead.
Okay, so he dies. And before we watched the movie, I think I had mentioned before that I don't care that they're recasting everybody. I feel like the Zack Snyder version of DC was already done.
It's been dead for 5 years already.
Yes,
Get over it.
It wasn't working. The only
it's
movie
a rotting
corpse.
It's a rotting corpse at this point in the ground. Like people are still holding on to it. Like get over it.
Yeah. So, but the only one that I was like, oh my god, like I would be so upset if they do something is Zachary Levi with Shazam, because I really like the first movie. And again, I think I mentioned it before. So when that happened, I was like, okay, like I guess I'm okay with this happening. You know, like they'll probably recast him now, but at least he got like an ending, and he got a good ending. But then they brought him back. And like I'm obviously happy, but they haven't said if they're recasting him, huh? And I think he has a good chance of staying, only because I know that he's friends with James Gunn, because
and
he's
Peter
friends
Safran.
Yeah, so I feel like he might be okay, but still, like,
if anybody's
it's a little scary.
Yeah, if anybody's okay, probably Asher Angel and Zachary Levi, who play that character. They both play Billy Bats and Shazam. If only because I could see them using that character in some way. It would be really. I don't think there'll ever be another Shazam movie with this cast. If nothing, if not because of the quality, or maybe even the box office in and of itself. But I do believe that the director did say he's done with this kind of movie. And honestly, if this is the last comic book movie he makes, good. I mean, this is a really great movie, I want to say. It's David F. Sandberg. Now, if you're not familiar, his background is in horror, and the films that he made before the two Shazam movies were Annabelle Creation from 2017, and then also Lights Out from 2016. So he might want to get back more into horror or maybe do something else. But I mean, it's taxing making anything comic book related, let alone two comic book films. But you know what? He, I think, is a proven example of why horror directors make for a great pool to choose from to do comic book movies. Sam Raimi was a horror director. Look how wonderful that paid off in spades for Spider-Man, and even in Doctor Strange. I mean, if you watch it with the sound off, obviously. But as far as like,
I like the sound.
Okay, if you if you watch it with the dialogue removed completely, and you keep in the score, okay, that probably is the optimal viewing experience. Now, also, I think he should be commended for making two great comic book films that very much fell of a different era. In the same way we talk about Top Gun and Avatar: Way of Water as feeling like blockbusters from like over 10 years ago, Shazam and Shazam: Fury of the Gods feel like movies that, from a craft standpoint and from a script standpoint, do have a feel of old school Harry Potter in there. Like, it really does feel like something we would have gotten in the 2000s, but obviously with much better visuals and effects. And you know, what's also I think he should be commended for is not only in that they both turned out pretty great, but both of them, the budgeting was around $100 million, and the effects looking as amazing as they do. Like, there's a lot of, I think there's a huge checklist, Alexis, of the number of great things Fury of the Gods achieved. The effects were great, and it's been a while since we've seen a comic book film where the visuals have been anywhere close to good. Anywhere close to good. But here, they were great. All of the action sequences in and of themselves, the effects held up, the dragon looked great. The visual of Shazam with the spear, or the staff, I don't know what you want to call it, and then the dragon and the fiery breath coming out of it, and the hues that, you know, lit the entire picture was so beautiful. And that's just one moment of it, but they were also directed interestingly and in a very noticeably different way than any of the other recent comic book films. You can tell this wasn't just Marvel's action unit doing like take 27 or take 39. You know, they were filmed and you notice where the camera was moving that made them look completely all on their own. So from that standpoint, it delivered. It also delivered in the usual ways most of them do, but in a more meaningful way. So yes, you have a great cast, but it actually utilizes them. It actually has a sense of characterization. There are themes in this film, and there are arcs in this film. The characters all have the main characters anyway, have moments to shine themselves, and they all get to participate in the action. And all of the villains themselves and the characters, all of their stories in this film are all tied together by an overarching message, an overarching theme. And all of these things are entirely absent from Marvel's approach to all of the stories they tell. It doesn't even occur to them. Like, if you ask them what a theme was, they probably would stare at you for a long time and like think hard. Like, what do you mean? What's a theme? I don't think they honestly know what a theme is over there at Marvel. And here, and why are those? Why is that so important? Because unlike Marvel, here with Shazam, what do you get when you have your arcs and your themes? You have real stakes, you have real heart, and you have real emotion. And when you said that you were crying at this movie, so was everybody else. I was so surprised with how emotionally invested I was with all of what was going on, but especially with Billy's confrontation and Billy's story and his sacrifice. That was legitimately moving in a way most of the comic book films haven't been.
And I like that it adds on from the first movie. In the first movie, you know, he's very closed off for good reason, blah, blah, blah. And he has his own arc in this movie, but he has his own arc with both movies in the end.
Well, even that in and of itself is a novel idea, right? That Marvel refuses to do. It actually builds off of an idea that came in a previous installment instead of just abandoning it or ignoring it completely or doing a different approach entirely. Yeah, it builds off of what came before and overall makes both installments better.
Yeah.
For doing it. Also, you're right. Like, this is also a really great balance of, yes, where it does feel a little bit Harry Potter is in the sense that it is a little bit more than other franchises geared for children. But I feel like when people say that, they neglect to really, they oversell that, and it makes it sound as if it's for just like kids only. Here's the thing though. Yes, in a way it is. But this is where it also has that 90s, 2000s sensibilities where it doesn't give a shit like how sanitized or how generic the palette has become among audiences. It doesn't care. Even in a movie that is overall meant for families instead of like adults, you should say, they're still going to have more gruesome and disturbing deaths than any Marvel movie ever has. They had the principal walk off the school.
Mm-hmm.
He fell, he died, and you heard the sound design, you heard his body when it hit the floor. And it was played straight. It wasn't played for laughs. It was like legitimately disturbing and horrifying.
Yeah, like it was really disturbing. He was and like it was such a short thing because we have him in 2 scenes in that one, and then what did he do right before? He was defending the kid,
Freddy. Also, like I had a feeling this movie was going to be really good out of the gate. That first sequence when we start the movie was really good. It was also kind of horrific too, because like you have Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, and they kind of like unleash like people attacking each other, and it almost felt like you're watching a horror movie there, because like it's almost like right, yeah, basically was. And then how it ended with like all the people there just becoming statues, like, and then also the third act where, even though we don't see it, it's implied a lot of people died because, I mean, you have monsters that are just unleashed into the city. So, even though it's a film that is like, has a smaller budget, it has a bigger and more impactful third act than any recent comic book film I can like. I mean, even think of the one that we saw before. Think about how removed from reality and humanity Ant-Man's third act took place in. That's why the
Annabelle doll was in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You noticed the Annabelle doll?
Oh, I'm sorry. I like connected that as you were talking.
Well, it's also WB. So also, if you notice, Billy Batson made like Game of Thrones references, Harry Potter references. He also name dropped Saruman. That was a great like joke where he was trying to say the wisdom of like Solomon, but he said the wisdom of Saruman, which was funny.
Dude, this movie was so funny. But yeah, because the scene when he's in therapy came out in the trailers, and every time it would come on, I'm like, why is the Annabelle doll there?
Oh my god. Which is the director did an Annabelle movie. That's your answer.
That's funny. And then both of the Annabelle dolls are there. That's so fucking scary. I would not walk into the office. But
you'd walk out with one of the dolls in your bag.
No.
Oh my god! Imagine. I haven't seen any of the Annabelle films, and I think for good reason.
You should. They're. I think they're pretty good.
I didn't say they weren't. I just feel like I'm gonna start. I mean, do you realize my history with like evil doll franchises? I don't want to like remember Chucky. I don't like want to relive that ever again. You know. But I'm sure they're good though.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry. I just literally like my head like clicked. I don't know. I love this movie, and I'm so sad that I hope that he is able to do more, and I hope that it's one of the good ones.
These movies deserved better, and it's honestly kind of shocking to me that again this keeps happening, not just in terms of like the movies or the superhero films that we like being slapped away, but I've also noticed from critics like I don't, when I see critics like roll their eyes and attack everything in this movie, I'm like, do you guys like not know how to have fun anymore? Like, do you not know what makes a really good comic book film? I'm telling you, this had everything. Even the villains are great. Like, I mean, Lucy Liu did come off a bit wooden in comparison to like Rachel Zegler and Helen Mirren. But on that note, how amazing was Helen Mirren?
Mm-hmm.
How amazing was Helen Mirren? Like she was going all Shakespeare, honestly, with how she was like executing that role. And she didn't even read the script. She just read her lines. Probably. Like she was asked like the plot in this film and she couldn't even like tell you. But you know what? You wouldn't even know because she delivered. Yeah. She delivered all her scenes. Yeah. I would not be mad if she won an Oscar for this. Honestly. She's so good. And again, Rachel Zegler, only her second big movie, but you can tell where she's going to be a star, and she should be one because she has such instant kinetic energy with Jack Dylan Grazer, somebody else who I think makes great decisions in projects that he's in.
I have a thing. So I don't know if you knew the story with him. Some accusations came out about his ex-girlfriend. I don't really know. I just kind of read the surface level of that.
Mm-hmm.
And after we watched the movie, I was talking to David about him, and I was like, I hope that he stays good, because he's so
talented.
He's so talented.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. And I hope that, he stays on the right path. I don't know.
There were some scenes.
It's scary.
Yeah, there were some scenes in this film that required him to show the tremendous agony he was going through. And it's some of the best acting I've seen in a comic book film in a while. And you know what? I think there's a reason why he was paired up with Jacob Tremblay in Luca, because both of those actors are of the similar age, and they're both up and coming. They're both amazing. Think about that.
Oh my God.
Because Jacob Tremblay is also an amazing actor.
Oh,
but they're like, I feel that Jack Dylan Grazer is of that level because he is incredible. Absolutely.
So
and that's why he's in this movie a lot, honestly. He's in so much of this movie. If there's anything that I had an issue with the film is I wanted more of Asher Angel's Billy Batson.
Yeah, that's what me and David were saying too, that I wish that him and Zachary Levi would have gotten 50-50 because
or as close to that as possible. Because it feels like I hardly saw Asher Angel in this movie.
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. But yeah, I agree, because they both make this character, and I think that what was missing from the first one was him, because he not that Zachary Levi doesn't bring heart to the movie, but he's a kid, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that he brought more seriousness to the character, more grounded a little bit.
Right. Because like Shazam,
and I think that was
it's supposed to be goofy for the most part.
Yeah,
and
I understand, and I think that he did so good in that. But I think it needed a little bit more of the kid.
Absolutely. I also want to shout out Christoph Beck, who I think he's been getting better and better as a composer. I really enjoyed the score in this movie. The music definitely added to the overall aura. The set
when he's like, "No way, I got to rescue you into this song."
That was so funny. Like, honestly, legitimate, great liners in there. I love the set pieces. I love how I'm watching this film and it all feels like it was shot in a real place and not just on a soundstage.
Yeah.
It feels lived in. The dynamic with all of the cast members is just so good. It's hard to believe at times how, good it sounds. And you know what? It's also beautifully paced. Like, this movie is like a little over 2 hours. You were never
not entertained, I think.
It starts off great and it just keeps going. Like, I honestly feel that's one of the underrated aspects of this movie that's not being appreciated enough, among everything else, literally, but particularly here, the pacing. It goes and it goes, and at no point do I feel like we're staying in one place too long. It's moving. And there were even some couple of twists there that I was surprised. One of the more things that I was surprised by is the sacrifice that I legitimately was moved by. And you know what? I'm still not sure where I've landed with this, because considering that we're probably not going to get another Shazam film, part of me wants to think that maybe they should have just ended the film with him dead. But considering that Zachary Levi may return as that character, maybe they don't want to do that particularly. At the same time, if there's one moment in the film that made me cringe, was not the fact that Wonder Woman was there, but that when they introduced her, they turned up the volume to like 20 and blared her theme, and I was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
I'm okay with her being in here, and I'll even
Yeah,
go
it was
with,
funny. Yeah,
it was funny, and I'll even go with you with her bringing him back to life because I like him, and it's gonna make for a great moment, and it's gonna be heartfelt. I'll go with you on that.
And
but
if they do make another movie, he's gonna bring that up, and it's gonna be funny.
yeah, no, that legitimately funny. Even I found it hilarious how Rachel Zegler clarified her age difference, and then she kissed Jack Dylan Grazer, and then like everybody like behind them was like, this suddenly feels a little inappropriate now, right? And I think the mom, who didn't get enough here, but she was great in the film.
Oh my god, the mom was so good.
And then later on, she was like, "What is it with our boys and older?"
Cry.
Oh no, yeah, What is it with our boys and older women? When she said later on with Wonder Woman back in the other land, it was so funny. Yeah, these are really good movies, and they had good villains, and they had good stories, and it pains me how underappreciated and underloved both of them are in an ocean of just absolute mediocrity. They're surrounded by mediocre and awful movies, and yet we spent most of our time talking about them instead of like Shazam, which was legitimately great. I'm gonna buy this movie when it comes out on Blu-ray. I mean, I have the first one. And I'm really happy because I was scared. Because I was, the reaction to it wasn't promising before going into the movie, But you're wrong. We're right, guys. What are we going to say?
Yeah.
It's just how it goes. Alexis, I know we're running late here. Before we wrap things up, I did want to get your thoughts. If anything you wanted to add on as to how you feel the Academy Awards shaked out this year. If you at all wanted to say anything that hasn't already been said, or if you wanted to make your feelings known. I mean, I assume you were glad to see Everything Everywhere All at Once take a historic, sweeping win. The likes we haven't seen really ever before. And then A24, especially a movie studio that has, produced amazing content, but has kind of like struggled in the last decade. But them to like take literally all but one of the 8 major above the land categories, that's historic. No one's ever done that before. The winners, Frasier, Michelle, Key, even Jamie Lee.
Have you seen The Whale?
Yeah, we talked about The Whale.
Oh.
Yeah,
we did.
We did.
Okay, because
that movie gets so much hate for no reason.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It pisses me off that people are like...
They're disgusted, they're repulsed. Yeah.
I'm happy that he won, but I'm sad that it's for this role.
I don't know. I'm
sorry?
No.
I understand what they're trying to say. I just think that...
They're wrong.
This isn't what they're trying to say that it is.
No, I feel like all the things that I've read that were negative about the film were almost... I mean, I guess I can understand... Not that I agree, because I don't, but I guess I can understand a point of view that says it was too theatrical, whatever that even means. I don't know what that... I don't want to defend it, but I just want to put it out there. But what I don't understand are these accusations of it being fat-phobic, or that it was like glamorizing or like making fun of the main character because of how fat he was. And I don't... That wasn't there. It feels like it was made up.
Yeah, I did not... I just don't think...
The Whale's a really good movie.
Oh my god.
And it has amazing acting in it, and I feel like both... I'm happy that Brendan won because he deserved it, and I'm also happy that Hong Chow was even nominated because she was great.
Yeah, she was.
And does it feel like a play at times? Sure, but to me, I feel like people put too much stock in theatricality, quote unquote, being like big and expansive. I don't care if a movie takes place in a single space and it's just people talking. That to me can be as invigorating as some of the biggest like light fireworks shows you'll see on any movie. Mm-hmm. And if you don't feel that way, you need to probably broaden your horizons and explore different kinds of movies than just big action adventure, which, by the way, we love, but we like. You should probably look into different kinds of movies out there. And maybe you'll be surprised with what you enjoy when you do that. But yeah, it is very striking to see a film like Everything Everywhere be the Best Picture winner. Like, you just would never think a movie like that would appeal to the people in the Academy, who historically are among the worst people in the industry. So, anywho, I think we're going to go ahead and leave it there. The only lingering things that we want to say is we're going to be watching a lot of films in the coming weeks. A lot of them are going to come out. Dungeons and Dragons, Super Mario Brothers. And
oh my God, I'm so excited for Dungeons
yes, we're going to
Dragons.
see that pretty soon. And it's getting some good reactions too. And then also Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The trailers, I think I'm going to cry in this movie. I think I might legit ugly cry in this movie, because if it's teasing the death of the character I think it is, oh my god. And also, I really do hope that and I can't imagine it would be this way, because no offense to Shazam or Ant-Man, but they're not necessarily that well known as comic book characters. Not as much as the Guardians are today, but if for some reason Guardians 3 also doesn't do well at the box office, everybody hold on to your shit, because like we're all gonna like hold hands and go down this waterfall together, and some of us are not gonna make it out alive, because this is bad. If Guardians 3 underperforms, oh wow, that's bad. Yeah. But I'm hopeful that I can't see it not doing well, because I think we all know it's gonna be great. And once again, guess what? Who made it? James Gunn. He does nothing but great stuff all of the time. And yet people doubt him. People they think that he's too immature or he's too jokey, that he can't make a serious Superman movie. I don't know about you, but I think one of the problems with the last Superman film was that it took itself way too seriously, and it took itself way too seriously in the worst way possible. Again, thank you, Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
That wasn't good. That adaptation, I mean, that really wasn't a good Superman movie. That's not... So, yeah, we got a lot of excitement coming up in the next few weeks, and fingers crossed we get some really good movies coming up. Anyway, thank you, Alexis, for being here. Thank you all for listening. As always, you can catch your podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts every single Sunday. Stay under our spotlight for more content and more. And again, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.